Hi, welcome to the Fresh Start Podcast. You're listening to episode number 3. Hi, it's Marcia. Welcome to episode 3.
And I'm Stacy.
And my dogs are barking. Did you hear them? Hey, you got a new dog. How's your new dog? Charlie.
Charlie. I'll have to have Maggie bring her in.
I know. I want to see her. Oh, my gosh. How old is she?
She's 10 weeks old.
And you got her from a rescue.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I love
PetSmart
dogs.
on Saturdays has rescues in.
Yeah.
They have adoption days. So we went there, and there were a couple of nonprofits there. And she was the first one that we saw, and we walked out with her.
Well, that's how I
perfect.
got Thea, was at PetSmart. Yeah, on a Saturday morning, I went out there, and they had all these dogs, and that was through Proverbs 12, Animal Rescue. I still have a cold. We have a special guest today. I think you guys are going to love. Can you hear them? Do you hear them barking in the background?
This whole time I thought you and I were just chatting. I thought we were starting over. I didn't realize we were still recording.
Why not? It's real, right?
I love it.
I say make it real. I
There
say
you
the Fresh
go.
Start. We're gonna make this
We're
real.
fresh.
Hey, sometimes when you're recording podcasts at home, you just get. I don't know if y'all can hear my dogs barking, but yeah, they're being obnoxious. So we have a great guest today. We're going to get to that. I think I said this is episode 3. This is going to air on February 20 something, towards the end of the month. We're taping a little earlier. So we're 3 weeks into the new administration, taking apart our Constitution one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I don't know how everyone else is doing out there, but it's been a little crazy to watch, right?
Definitely has felt like early on someone said they felt like they had whiplash, and that's a good one. It's a good descriptive word.
Yeah.
I mean, it's emotions all over the board, and it's almost unbelievable too, the amount of destruction that's just kind of sweeping in at once. And then the other thing that I've noticed is that on social media, I have people, when I don't post a lot, but I do post some political themed things, and I have a few people out there that post laughing emojis on them.
Really?
And these are people I've known like years and years and years who are just happy with how things are. And they think that I'm just kind of out there on the deep end, just, conspiracy theory or something. And that's been kind of a strange place for me this week too.
Yeah, because I feel like the conspiracy theorists were more on the conservative side of politics, and now they're accusing us of having conspiracy theories. But I've been watching a lot, believe it or not a lot. I've been watching some Fox News. I don't watch much news at all, but when I turn it on, I have been watching Fox because I'm trying to figure out how they're spinning this to make this make sense. And they are sort of painting it as this is a good thing for America, da 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 da. So no wonder people are laughing, if that's what they're listening to, because they're hearing positive things about what the administration is doing, and it doesn't feel very positive to me. But my friend, V.L. Cox, I grew up calling her Lynette. We grew up together in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. She and I talk a lot about politics. She knows her stuff. And she just happened to text me the other day and said, "Girl, you need to turn on this." She sent me a link to YouTube, and she said, "There are people that are out there protesting in D.C." She goes, "People are starting to protest. They're starting to advocate for themselves. They're starting to say, hey, this is not right. This is not what we voted for." And she said, "You should watch it." And I said, "Yeah." I started watching it, and I thought, we need her on the podcast. She will bring she's a civil rights artist. Actually, I'm about to read her bio because let me just read that to you. This woman, she's amazing. V.L. Cox was born in 1962 in Shreveport, Louisiana, and raised in Arkansas. Like I said, she and I grew up together in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. She got her Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Henderson State University. That's where my dad taught, there in Arkadelphia. She is a professional artist of 30 years whose work has been highly active in projects that involve human rights and equality. In 2015, she launched her national End Hate Project, an anti-discrimination series based on segregation era doors. And that was in response to a bill, HBI 1228, which is a dangerous religious freedom bill in Arkansas. The doors were placed twice on the steps of the Arkansas State Capitol and then twice at the base of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., which you'll hear a little story about the doors in front of the Lincoln Memorial when we talk to her in a minute. The response to the doors was overwhelming. Images of the door installation went viral, and they were seen on Yahoo News, USA Today, in numerous newspapers across the country, and even as far away as India and South Korea. In 2020, Cox was one of the 20 artists in the nation to be featured in Ministry of Truth, 1984-2020, which is a New York City billboard project, which made the New York Times the most important moments in art in 2020 list. Her work has been in such prominent locations as the LGBT Center in New York, New York, the Virginia Longwood Center, the Rosa Parks Museum, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, the Virginia Holocaust Museum, and the Delta Cultural Center in Helena, Arkansas, which commemorated the 100-year anniversary of the Elaine Massacre. In 2023, Cox was awarded a Distinguished Alumni Award from Henderson State University, and in 2024 was one of the 120 artists selected nationwide for the exhibition Into Action 2024, promoting change and the power of voting during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. She currently lives in the Artist District in Peekskill, New York, and we're going to have her on here in just a minute. We've already taped the conversation, so it is rich. It's a rich conversation. So get ready for this great interview with my friend, artist V.L. Cox. All right, here we are. Welcome, my dear friend V.L. Cox, to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. It's good to see you again.
I know it's been a little while. We grew up in Arkansas, Arkadelphia, Arkansas, together in the deep South. We're childhood friends, lost touch as most people did after high school. And I guess it was social media that brought us back together, right? Is that how we found
Yeah,
one?
it was. That's how I found a lot of people after leaving, Arkadelphia,
Yeah.
which has been wonderful to keep up with everyone.
Yeah, that's the good thing. There's good and bad about social media, but that's definitely one of the wonderful things about it. That's how Stacy and I connected. I mean, we met briefly at a little retreat years ago, but then we connected on social media. And then we just started seeing, wow, she's posting a lot of the same things that are resonating with me. And eventually we went, wow, we're on the same journey. And we said, we need to have a phone call. And we started talking. And then it's just developed from there. So you really can, get to know people if they're being themselves on social
Right.
media, which you are for sure, for sure. I when we were growing up, I don't even remember that you were that into art. Did you do a lot of art growing up, like in high school and stuff? How did I miss that?
I did actually, and I didn't think much of it until recently. Of course, my grandmother signed me up for my first art class at Henderson State University at the age of 10.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it was like a kid's summer camp kind of thing. And the professor, the guy who taught the class, was Joe Scott, who 20 years later became my mentor and advisor at Henderson State. So when
wow.
she passed away, I found that original portfolio of that class in her cedar chest, and it's my most valuable possession to
Mm.
this
Ah,
day.
Wow.
Yeah, but in high school, I did political cartooning, if you can believe it. I didn't even remember doing that till I found them the other day. And then I took
Really?
two art classes my senior year because I had to join, I think, Future Teachers of America to get to do that.
Hmm.
And I don't remember anything about the Future Teachers of America other than I got another art class out of it. So,
Well, when did you really get passionate about using your art for activism and promoting civil rights?
it was in 2015. I've been an artist, of course, a professional artist for over 30 years.
Hmm.
But in 2015 in Arkansas, at the time, I was in a long-term relationship, raising children, same-sex relationship, and paid our taxes, had a mortgage, just contributed to our community. Everything was great until they tried to pass Bill HB 1228. And it was one of the religious freedom bills that was basically Jim Crow laws that had been, tweaked and modernized. And to save my life, I never dreamed that they would come after me and my family, or that I
Mm.
could be denied life saving medical care or a sandwich in a restaurant.
Mm.
And it was really eye opening to have that happen. When I first panicked, because I was afraid it not only was going to affect, my partner, myself, and my community, but my children at
Hmm.
the time. I reached out to a friend of mine, Miss Annie Abrams, who is a Black activist down there. I knew her mother when I was a child, and she is highly revered. She's a legend. And I said, "What do I do?" And she goes, "Well, you fight." And I thought, oh my God, she's been fighting her entire life.
Yeah.
It was really an eye opening, profound moment of the privilege that I never paid attention to before that I realized that I had.
Hmm.
So all that, I was processing all of that, and all I could think of was how we were being separated intentionally. So I did a series of doors based on segregation and, white only, colored only, because that was the terminology they used back then. I wanted people to reflect on history and see and remember where we had been before and where we were headed again very quickly. And what people don't realize when they say that was such a long time ago, Marcia and I can tell you that's not true. That was in our lifetime. And
Yes.
we're not that old, girl.
Yes.
So, so I did that, but I added LGBT only, veterans only, homeless only, immigrant only. And the last door I did was, which you can see behind me, was the human being door.
Mm.
I did the letters in 24 karat gold leaf, and I wrapped them in chains because when you separate people, you're denying them human being status.
Mm.
So I put them on the state capitol steps after getting a permit very quickly overnight through some friends of mine. And I woke up the next day and they're all over Yahoo News. Everything changed after that. It was such a simple message, and simplicity I have learned, and transparency and vulnerability is the key. We
Mm.
have to be real when we address these issues, and we have to be serious about it, and we have to listen. So that's just a little bit of when everything changed. Um, we started throwing the doors in the back of a pickup truck and trying to pass equality ordinances through a lot of different communities. Sorry, that's my
Hudson.
cat. That's my cat, Hudson. There he is.
Yeah.
So we would take it to different communities and different cities around Arkansas to get equality ordinances passed because we needed protection, um, for a lot of different reasons, especially in the rural South. And we were so successful in doing so and getting these protections that the legislative session then passed, I want to say Act 134, something like that. It was the Interstate Commerce Act that said that individual cities in the state cannot have protections, civil rights protections. They can't enact that without the state legislature doing it for the entire state. So basically, they shut us down. And I took that as a badge of honor that we were being so successful that they had to pass a bill.
Mm.
And then after that, a museum from Virginia flew down to Little Rock, observed the work, and then toured it for 2 years. And so it's been an incredible journey. I have, as a closeted introvert, I have talked to hundreds and thousands of people face to face, which I think is very rare. And it's an incredible opportunity to really have boots on the ground instead of what you're being fed through all this ratings based and media, I have actually talked to people, a lot of people, and I feel like I have been very fortunate to been able to put my finger on the pulse of the real America. So
Mm.
that's kind of where everything changed, and I have been on this path ever since, and I will continue to be on this path and for the rest of my life. I mean, once you decide to walk this path of civil rights, you don't just conveniently step off of it. You're in it for life. So that's everything in a nutshell.
Yeah. I wish I could remember who I was listening to yesterday. But when you mentioned white privilege, that what that person was saying impacted me because, I feel like in the U.S. we're all reeling from this kind of simultaneously,
Right.
but that's not the truth.
Yeah.
As part of a protected class, I feel things now that marginalized Americans have felt for their whole lives. Yeah, I was talking to my daughter and her partner before we got on Zoom and was asking them, told them about you and asked what they would want to hear. And they said, we're just not sure. Like, it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of that is intentional, especially right now, to hit everybody with everything that they've got. Keep everything overwhelmed is a strategy. And so, I think it's time to take a deep breath and do the best we can to pace ourselves through this and to circle the wagons. There's a lot of people out there, and I can say that from my past experiences, that are very concerned about this and don't feel the way that we think everyone feels. And you know what I'm saying? It's like there's still a lot of good out there in the world. There's people who do not like the way this is headed. I still have a lot of hope in people. I have a lot of hope in our country, and I have a hope in my community. And so I still, I mean, I'm not being unrealistic. I really believe that it's there, but I think that we have to stick together, and we've got a little bit of a fight on our hands, and I'm down for it. I'm ready. I'm not going to give up my country without a fight. This is the land of the free, and free is the key word.
Yeah. That's one of my questions is how do we balance that hope that we have with the very real work we need to do to try to resist what's happening?
Yeah. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. I don't think people realize, like I said, we're just seeing the chaos right now. But I know I read an article yesterday, like a lot of the CDC information that has been erased and taken down right now about health issues that we need to definitely be informed about. People around the country now have been just scraping data from other websites and everything and putting it on a site called the Internet Archive, which I have used often. People are saving the data. People are not throwing this data away. And I believe that is such a beautiful form of not only resistance, but resilience, and how we're still going to be able to take care of one another and, things like that. So I think that there's a way to contribute and to get through this and to have hope through these tumultuous times.
I saw this quote by Toni Morrison this morning, and it just randomly popped up. But I thought of you immediately. And the quote says, "This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal." And I thought that was so beautiful. But if you're not artistic and you can't speak with your art, there are other ways. I have never been felt called into activism. And I would probably guess that a lot of our listeners don't feel. They're like, what can I do? I'm just an ordinary human being. But there are a lot of ways to be an activist without being one that's maybe down marching on the street. I mean, some people are. I saw my friend Holly she was on the Capitol steps a couple of days ago. She was fighting, and I'm like, go Holly, But I just thought maybe we could share some ways today if people are how can we make a difference? Because people are scared. I was talking to my friend Carol yesterday. She's a black woman in Georgia, and she's in her 60s, and she remembers, just like you and I, Lynette. She's VL, but I grew up calling her Lynette, so sorry.
It's all good.
We remember you and I a few years ago were talking about someone we know who had a cross burned in her yard because they found out she was dating a black boy. Wasn't that the case? I mean, that was in our lifetime while we were growing up. And Carol remembers, she remembers lynchings down in Macon, Georgia. She remembers, you know, on Saturday afternoons, the crowd gathering in the Circle Square to watch a lynching. And then those same people were the deacons at church the next morning, and it was like, how do you reconcile all that? And she was saying, girl, I never thought that I would literally feel like we're going back to those times. Like I'm having the same kind of feelings. She said, I've never been one to carry a gun, but my brother has been. Girls, you've got to go get a gun. You have to protect yourself. People are really scared, but
Right.
that scare and that fear can cause us to just be paralyzed. It's like, what do we do? And so, yeah, I just thought we could talk a few ways about, what activism is. And I just saw it says activists challenge the status quo by using their voice to bring about social, political, economic, or environmental reform. There is no single way to conduct activism. Any collective action which draws attention to an issue constitutes activism. At its core, activism is about highlighting injustices and advocating for a better future. I was thinking the other day that maybe the place to start is to just find one cause that there's so many things that I think need to be changed, but maybe I just need to pick one thing that I can really dive into. What do y'all think about that? Do you think it's like worth it to just sort of like pick a lane and kind of stay there with one cause at a time, or just what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a good place to start. I really do. I think that with everything hitting us so fast and so hard from so many different directions,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also an opportunity to just that so many opportunities, I guess, are going to come at you at one time. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have more than one thing to where I feel you can contribute to. And I don't mean like you said, march in the streets. I don't mean all this other stuff. Just saying a kind word to somebody, an encouraging word of hope.
Mm.
That is one of the biggest things we can do right now. Um, I've always loved history, for an example, but when things started changing in 2015, and I started doing a lot of these pieces that have to do with history,
Mm-hmm.
especially white supremacy, which I feel very strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary stuff, and you definitely want to make sure that you're conveying it in the proper way and with the proper historical context. Um, we have been down this road before. I know it doesn't seem like we have, but we have. There have been some pretty scary times here in America throughout the history of our country. The Supreme Court used to approve of lynchings. I don't know, and I may be incorrect on this, but I don't remember right off the top of my head of anybody that was involved in one as far as a white person, or Emmett Till, for an example. None of these men were held accountable. None.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Right.
totally injustice. The justice system was 100% broken.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they used to turn the fire hoses on the Black community during the civil rights movement. Horrible, horrible things have happened. We have been down this road before. And I think, just like I said, I think words of encouragement, words of hope, um, places of sanctuary. If someone wants to come to my house, if they're afraid, they're welcome in my door anytime. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean that from the South on up here to New York. If anybody in Arkansas contacts me and says, I'm scared, I'm scared for my life, I'm very worried, I don't know what I'm going to do, come spend the weekend with me. It's little things like that. I would just think the human connection is one of the most important things we can do right now. And we will
Mm,
figure the rest out as it comes, because these opportunities and these things, these needs will present themselves to you. You just have to remain open for them. And I believe that that comes from a higher power. That's just me.
mm. I believe that too.
Yeah, I think that being observant, being present, that's, my my work in the past few years has just been to slow down. And I think we have to maintain that, because I find myself wanting to kind of shut down because of the pace of everything. And I'm asked more often than not, how do you stay aware of what's happening without, having it impact you to the point of just not wanting to pay attention? And that's a hard question. It's a hard answer to try to come up with. But if we aren't present and have our eyes open and our ears open and our hearts open, then we will miss opportunities. I love what you said about just building connections with people. I think that's huge, and why it's so important to start from our local area. Like, we're building connections and supportive relationships with people that live with us and near us. Start small.
Yeah, because like I think Lynette talked about a minute ago, what's happening right now is intentional chaos. They're trying to overwhelm us. They're trying to paralyze us. And every time I start shutting down and just like, I can't do anything about this, I realize I'm resting in privilege. Like, if I think this is not my work to do, it's because I'm a privileged white woman right now.
Right. Right.
And so I want to get out of my bubble, and I want to look around, and yeah, having conversations like the one I had with my friend Carol yesterday, listening to what other people are experiencing. Like, I may not be experiencing that, but Lynette, I know you were living in Little Rock and getting death threats over your work,
Right.
right? Isn't that one
Right.
of the reasons why you moved to New York? You just didn't feel safe?
I wasn't ever afraid. I'm afraid of two things: tornadoes and spiders. Those are the only things I'm afraid of. Honestly, I'm not afraid of anything else. I'm a Southern woman whose father wanted a boy, and I was deer hunting with him at the age of 10. So, I think I can take care of myself. But um, I got tired of it. I became pretty weary after I toured with the work for so many years.
Mm,
Um, I got weary. And after the 2016 election, um, I noticed a change in my social circle back in the Deep South. People didn't want to associate anymore. I would get these private messages, and people quietly would come see me and secretly and say, "Oh, we love what you're doing, but I can't be seen with you. I'm going to lose my pension. With my job, I have a state job." All that happened. And
wow.
I was told when I returned right before COVID was getting ready to hit at the time. I was told to quote unquote stay in my lane more times than I can count. And when I told that to a friend of mine who's a historian, I'm not going to use the expletives, but he was like, "Stay in your lane. You're driving all over the blankety blank road," that kind of thing. But it became draining. Yes, I was threatened by a member of the Ku Klux Klan when I first did the doors, and I kept a loaded shotgun by my studio door for 2 years down there. But turned them into the FBI, all that stuff, whatever. But I just became weary. It just became isolating.
Hmm.
And with isolation comes a little bit of depression. And I just didn't want to go down that road. So when they pushed during COVID, when they pushed the bills that we had fought so hard backwards, like to be denied a sandwich in a restaurant or life-saving medical care, which is in effect in Arkansas right now for
Ugh,
LGBTQ. They'll say, "Oh, we'll get somebody else to come get you, or we can get another doctor to treat you," because of their sincerely held religious beliefs. Well, those same statements were used. The religious aspect of it was used during slavery. So I'm not buying any of that, but I just didn't want to deal with it at my age. And so friends of mine, when they passed that through and pushed it through during COVID, when everyone was scared and suffering, and these, cruel lawmakers just had an agenda, that's when friends of mine in New York said, "It's time for you to leave." And so I did. And it was definitely a culture change, but I'm glad I made the move. I
Mm.
feel like I have a safer space. I feel like I have a larger platform. I stay in touch with everyone. I care a great deal about my community in the South.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, that's part of the reason I came up here. But things changed politically and socially down there very quickly.
That is nuts. I mean, all because Trump
Yeah,
emboldened all of these people to speak the quiet parts out loud
to be themselves.
or to be
right.
themselves. Oh my gosh, that's so true, Stacy, to be themselves. And I guess there is, another friend of mine said, well, the good thing is that the cancer in our country has been diagnosed.
Right.
It's like it was there, but there were a lot of people, I think maybe especially under President Obama, I felt this way. I was like, oh, our country has come so far. Look at us. We have elected a black man as president. And of course, my black friends were saying, oh, we didn't feel the difference. Like they still were living it. But
Right.
again, in my little bubble, I thought, we're not a racist country anymore. We have a black president. I had no idea the slingshot effect that was about to happen, which a lot of people contribute, the rise of Trump to that sort of like backlash. I don't know if that's the actual case, but I can kind of sense that.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
So, tell me what you're doing right now. What's I know you have some art is it Rosa Parks
I
Museum that
do.
you
I
have
have
up an
I
exhibit?
do. I have an exhibition at the Rosa Parks Museum. I have shown there before, and I have such a wonderful relationship with them. It's really
Mm,
been great. Um, so I have an exhibition there right now. I'm also working on a new series called a Rosenwald School series. Are you familiar with the Rosenwald schools?
no, tell us.
We went to one, Marcia, and I don't know if you, yeah, in fifth grade, we went to one fifth through seventh. We peak what used to be a Rosenwald school. And
Really?
so, yes, Julius Rosenwald was a Jewish philanthropist. He was also co-owner of Sears and Roebuck Company. And he read Booker T. Washington's book, Out of Slavery, and was so moved by it, he contacted him. And they, along with the Black community, and very little support from the white school board, they built over 5,000 Black schools through the South during segregation. John Lewis went to one, Maya Angelou went to one. Um, it's pretty powerful stuff when you read about it.
Mm.
People, especially north of the Mason-Dixon line, they've never heard of them up here because they were a Southern thing. But there were over 5,000 of them built. And I want to say to this day, there's only 300 and something left. And half of those are in disrepair. So there's been a book written on it. I'll show you the book right here. This is an incredible book. If you get a chance to
Oh,
read it, it's really well done.
for those that
And
can't see it, it's called A Better Life for Our Children.
yeah, it's really good. He did a photo documentary of some of the ones that are in disrepair, some of the ones that have been turned into community centers. If it weren't for the Black community just scraping together what little they had, along with these two other gentlemen, this would have never happened. And so it's lost history, of course. And I would like to say that I can't remember how many there used to be in Arkansas. I think there's 7 to 9 right now that have been documented, but there were a whole lot more than that. That I think it's kind of hard to see where they used to be. A lot have been bulldozed down by the white communities. But Fisk University out of Nashville is
Yeah.
doing quite a bit of work. They have over 150,000 documents. They have all the Rosenwald documents and they're digitizing them right now. I've been communicating with them back and forth. From what I know so far, no one has ever done a three-dimensional model series of them. Now, there's hundreds of them. I have chosen 22 to start out with, and I am currently in the process of building those models with sponsorships right now. And we'll have a display probably around June here in New York, along with another part of my other exhibition stuff, but this will be in a separate room. And I'm setting them up on pedestals, and we're making the room look like an interior of one of the old schools with the old chalkboard and everything.
Ah,
Um,
cool.
Education has been the key with a lot of these pieces because they have such a historical background and context. So that's a big project I'm working on right now, and I just launched it about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, is
Wow.
peak one of your 22?
Yes, it is.
Yay. Oh, that's so
I know.
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you go to my website and you look at like the Sugar Shack,
Hmm.
which is a piece I did, I read a book and it talked about how when the Voting Rights Act passed in 1965 in the Black Belt of Alabama, the Black community dressed up in their Sunday best and they went to an old mercantile store called the Sugar Shack. And there was a black and white photograph of it from the
Mm.
farm administration or something. They had taken a photograph back in the day. And it was such an amazing photograph. I was reading this book on the train into Manhattan and it just blew me away. So I recreated the Sugar Shack, showed it at the Rosa Parks Museum a few years ago, and it's now with a collector in Georgia. But if you go to my website, that's what these schools are pretty much going to be based on.
Oh, how
Okay.
cool.
And there's a few other things I want to do as well. But you kind of have to pace yourself through some of
Hmm.
these pieces because there's so much happening at one time. You kind of need to pick your battles. And I want to pick the ones that are easy to convey because, like I said, simplicity is the key here.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so there's, I've got a few ideas sketched down, but my plate is full with creative projects right now.
I don't know how you just
So,
keep coming up
It's
with
inspiration.
it is. You are. Yeah, she's inspired and she's just incredibly gifted and talented. And I just really you have been someone in my circle of friends that has constantly been an inspiration for me. And even just the other day we were touching base and I was thinking you're the one I was like, how can I do something? What can I do with what I have, at my fingertips? And I was like, oh, I have a podcast. Let's talk about it. Let's try to get some people on. And you were immediately, I was like, hey, will you come on the podcast? And you were like, sure. Because yeah, I think hearing people talk about it, hearing people's experiences, hearing people's stories, like you said, one on one, if we listen to each other and believe each other's experiences. I just saw a thing on a video this morning that Pete Buttigieg was talking about that. He said we have to get offline because what we're seeing online is misinformation. It's people
yes.
not really being themselves online. But when you get face to face, when you get one on one, I'll go back to what you were saying about that. You brought that up and it's so true. Like talking to people, hearing their stories, hearing their experiences, and then opening your heart and your mind and your ears to maybe a new perspective. I mean, I know I have, that has changed me. Walking in true friendship with people of different faiths, of different cultures, of different skin tones, those are the people that have taught me the most, not by looking online or seeing what someone posts, on like we said, there's good things about social media, keeping in touch with real friends, but there's also just this massive amount of misinformation. And so I think you're right. I think trying to talk and so having these one-on-one conversations, I think are important.
They're very important. I know you have probably seen this story in a couple of articles because I've talked about it often. When I took the doors to the Lincoln Memorial, for an example, after I put them on the state capitol steps in Arkansas, um, it was Earth Day and there were over 250,000 people there that day.
Wow.
And I'd never done anything like that before. So it was like, whoa.
Oh
I
man.
know, it's crazy. But anyway, I took Paula Morell with me at the time. She had an NPR radio show, Tales from the South, and she had used my screen doors in the background of some of her, things. And so we knew each other pretty well. So she took her recording equipment with her, and she was talking to people about how they felt about some of the things going on in our society today, if they had any stories of discrimination or any, positive stories or anything. She walked up to me at the Lincoln Memorial and said, "There's somebody that wants to meet you." And I turned around and there was this guy. He was a skinhead and he had white supremacy tattoos all over his body. And I just froze because I thought, oh no, he was over 6 foot tall, and he was dressed in a black shirt. He had his wife with him. She was dressed in black, and he stuck his hand out, and with a quiet voice, he goes, "I want to thank you for what you've done with these doors." And he said, "I was born in the Klan in South Georgia. My father and brother are still in the Klan in South Georgia." He said, "My wife and I fled South Georgia under the cover of darkness to move to Washington, D.C., because my son is transgender, and my family put a hit out on him. They were going to kill their own flesh and blood."
Oh my
And
God.
he said, "Since then, I am trying to get my tattoos removed and becoming a man of peace." And when I looked verbatim, that's what he said to me. And when I looked at his ears, he had two little Buddhist earrings in.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, that was such a profound moment in my life and in my career. I will never forget that man as long as I live. I will never forget how the love of his child just wiped away an entire lifetime of indoctrinated hatred. And hatred is a choice, and he chose love. I don't mean that to sound soft or gushy or anything. Love is very powerful,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
and he did. And people like that are the people that I have met and encountered on the road and through all these exhibitions. I had an evangelical minister come up to me when I did the Murder of Crows exhibition, which dealt with the Doors and white supremacy. And after he walked around and looked at the narrative, which I write a narrative, I like to write too. The narrative is half of the piece. I mean, those two things have to go together because I'm speaking from personal experiences. I'm not telling somebody else's story. I'm telling history, and I'm telling my experiences with it
Mm-hmm.
and what has moved me to do these pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me, and I think he was around Mountain View or Mountain Home, something like that. And he said, "I think I've been doing it wrong." He goes, "My community has been changing." He goes, "My congregation has been changing, and I don't like what I'm seeing." He goes, "I'm going to go back and talk to them about this. Can I have one of your books to take with me?" And I said, "Yeah." So I made a catalog at the time. When we did the Murder of Crows exhibition, people flew in from different states to see it. I wasn't expecting that. Word of mouth spread very quickly. And we were supposed to only show for a weekend to a week. And it ran 6 weeks, and people were still coming in the door from Oklahoma and things like that
Mm-hmm.
when I was breaking the show down. Once again, it's such a simple message. I use my art, you use your music, use your words. Everyone has a gift, everyone has a skill, everyone has a talent to communicate and touch others. And when we fall back on that one-on-one, communication, like you said, and that one-on-one interaction, people that pray differently than us, people that believe differently than us, people that vote differently than us, we still have a connection to these people. And those connections have overwhelmingly been positive. I really have experienced 90 something percent positivity, even in the deep South and in different areas with some of this work that is incredibly intense and very in your face and very accurate. So I agree with what you're saying. It really matters to communicate, just to reach out, just to listen. I would also like to state as well something that I feel very passionate about too. Coming from the deep South, we know the people, we know the mindset, we know the community that we grew up in. And a lot of times with a lot of these progressive, movements and things, which I feel are important, if you can't convey that narrative, if you cannot describe things and communicate with people, and I always used to use my father as an example, kind of like the baseline there, to where my father would understand what you were talking about, you've lost an entire demographic. You really have. It's all about communication, accurate communication.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And I feel that part of the reason we're in the situation we're in now is because we have forgotten how to communicate
Mm-hmm.
about very important things. So we have got to turn all that around. If we do not make those communication connections, we're not ever going to get past this point. It's really important.
Wow. Well, those stories show me why you do have hope.
I do have hope.
It's those stories that people are willing to share where they've changed their mind. I love that he had the little Buddha earrings, and he said, "I'm becoming a man of peace," or "I'm choosing to be a man of," whatever you said.
Right. Right.
That's that is our choice. And I have to touch on one other thing here before we let you go, but just the whole Christian white supremacy, how those things all got entangled, like how Christianity has become the religion that upholds white supremacy, and how, because I know you and I are both women of faith, all three of us are, um, and but we've also done a lot of disentangling from religious theology that maybe we were raised in. What church did you grow up in? Were you First Baptist?
I was in a Baptist church. My father went to Cattle Valley Baptist Church
Oh,
until my grandmother swooped in and picked me up one day and made me a Presbyterian.
Oh, I
So
didn't real
I'm an ordained Presbyterian elder. So
I did not know that. I did not know
yeah.
Louise was Presbyterian. Good for
Oh,
her.
devout Presbyterian.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm
Oh yeah.
surprised because her grandmother Louise and my mama Betty were good friends. We ha it cracks me up because a lot of times you and I both like to cook, and we're showing our recipes that we're cooking from Louise and Betty, and they're the same recipe. And we
They're
know
the
that
same recipe. I love
they
that.
shared recipes with each other growing up. But I'm actually impressed at Louise and Betty for being friends when they weren't going at the same church, because that was a big deal. Sometimes it's like, oh, we
Yeah.
Baptists stick together.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize you were an ordained Presbyterian elder. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm so grateful because I know there's a lot of, and I think there are two different kinds of Presbyterian, right?
Several.
Yeah. There's more than one for sure.
Well,
Lots.
some of them are more affirming and
Mhm.
inclusive than
Right.
others, right?
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
but it has broken both of our hearts to see how Jesus has been kidnapped. I don't know any other way to is it Stacy?
Hijack. I like
Yeah,
hijacked.
hijack. I think it's Diana Butler
Diana
Bass that,
Butler Bass, Freeing Jesus.
yeah, she wrote a book called Freeing Jesus.
Oh, I need to read that.
Oh, it's so good. It's so powerful. I knew I was going to love it because she opens the book with a very similar experience that I had when I had this impression that God was wanting the perspective to be from, way up here, like looking down at the earth and seeing all of these churches with walls, and how we've gotten so compartmentalized and separated, and that we need to get out of. We need to break down the walls. And she opens up her book with kind of a similar event that happened to her inside a beautiful church where she felt like Jesus was telling her to leave and to get him out of there, to take him with her.
I love that.
And
I'm so going to read that book.
I know Jesus is like, hey, you want to go somewhere else? Let's get out of
Get a
here.
cup of coffee somewhere.
go get a cup of coffee. Exactly.
This doesn't feel good. Yeah, I know you and I both talked a lot about that and about how heartbreaking it is. And you write some great stuff on Facebook. Do you have a blog that you write?
No, I've been asked to write a book and I haven't had time to get together to do it really. And I already have an editor and everything. I just haven't had time to say. I love to write,
You are a great
mainly.
writer.
Well, I
Hmm.
appreciate it. Thank you. It makes me feel calm. My art does not make me feel calm. I'm very worked up. I listen to Nina Simone, Mavis Staples. I'm just, in the background, and um, but writing seems to calm me down, and it's also a very good therapeutic thing that I enjoy doing. But yeah, I need to get more serious with it. I just haven't had time.
Yeah, put together a Substack and write that stuff out, girl. Because
Yeah,
yeah, it's your voice in that way needs to be heard. And I agree. Writing calms me when I write my little blogs. It helps me think through things in my own head. It's almost like a
right.
little bit of therapy.
Mhm.
we were talking this, Stacey and I just were together this past weekend at a women's retreat that we put on. And a therapist once said that you don't think complete thoughts in your head. You think you do because it's these jumbled words and they all make sense in your brain, but it's not until you speak it or write it down that it actually takes on, like, that's how you can find out answers to your own problems in a therapy session, because you start talking and all of a sudden, you blurt out something and you're like, oh, there it is. Or it's the same with writing. Sometimes just journaling, all of a sudden you're like, oop, there it is. It just comes out differently. So that's how my writing is too. And it kind of calms me and helps me process it in my own brain. And then if it helps somebody else, that's great too. But yeah, you are a beautiful writer. And so I want to encourage you. I know you've got your hands full with your art right now, but maybe someday you can put it all down on paper.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Is there anything else that you would just like to address today before we hang up?
There is. I know these are tough times. I know that our country has been here before. I know that we've been a messy, sloppy democracy. I believe it 100% has been worth fighting for in the past, and it's worth fighting for again. A lot of people have given their all, so we have the freedoms that we do have. We have a lot of work to do. Regardless of what level it is, even if it's just showing kindness to your neighbor next door or waving at someone across the street, I believe we have a responsibility right now to be a part of this on any level that we can. I believe it is a very serious moment in our country. I do have a lot of hope that we can definitely get through it, but to get through it, we have to be a part of it. I personally have a deep belief that everything that we've ever been through in our life, good or bad, everything that we've ever learned, any of the life learning experiences, like I said, just everything, I think, has brought us to this moment today and prepare us for it. I believe that we are here for a reason. I've always believed that. And so I am 100% committed to this, no matter where it takes me. And other people don't have to be on that level, but they do have a responsibility, I believe, just do something. Like I said, even if it's a small moment of gesture of kindness to someone, now is the time. It is. And I will help anybody that I can, and I'm going to need help too. There's moments where I go, oh no, I'm so tired. What am I doing? I'm so worried. I mean, it's just human nature to be scared, to doubt, and then be empowered. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Perfect.
Marsha,
Yes.
I'm changing my prompts
Okay.
on the fly.
Okay.
So I'll put, this is extra credit, and I'll put the original ones out in our liner notes or whatever.
Okay.
But in the Enneagram world, we know that we have 3 centers of intelligence: thinking, feeling, and doing. And we vastly prefer one, and we support that one with another. And the third one, we just kind of have a hard time getting to. And so, for me, that's acting and thinking, and I act and think and act and think. So I'm like a fire, aim, ready kind of a person.
We're working on your feeling.
Our best work, really. And, I talk to leaders as I coach them and tell them that third center is not a weakness and it's not something to avoid. I truly believe that that's where our greatest strength lies. So our greatest capability to influence other people happens when we do more than just, for me, when I do more than just act and think, when I pull that emotional center online, and then that's when I can truly build connection. And I think in times like this, it's extra challenging because we're under stress. So we're going to feel, for me, speaking for me, I'm in my head a lot. And I'm actually having a hard time getting active. Going to the farmer's market this morning was a chore because getting out was just hard. So, I'm struggling with my two preferred centers and not even getting, it's extra work is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's my prompt and my thought for myself and for all of us, that we try to integrate and find a way to be our best and to continue to put our best foot forward and really make what we're thinking and feeling and how we want to act to pull that all together in the best way that we can. And I think that supporting one another in that is a crucial part of it all.
I love that.
I do too.
I love that. That's a good challenge to leave us with today. And Lynette, we're going to put your website in the show notes and how people can follow you, and you're on Instagram and other places too. I know that people can find you, but I just can't thank you enough for coming on today. You can, if I haven't been planning on putting a video out, but I may put this whole episode in video just because I want people to see all that amazing art behind you. And plus they need to see Hudson walking around. Well, Hudson.
I know. He's laid back there. He's the best studio cat ever.
Great. I love him. Yeah, she's always, if you follow her on Instagram, you'll see pictures of Hudson pretty often. He's probably very helpful in the studio. I know he's very helpful.
Yeah.
But no, I just appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for coming on today. And I just love having you in my life, because I know that at any point we cannot talk for months and I can just text you and go, girl, I am mad. And you're like, girl, I am too. We're just like, we can pick up, and hopefully we'll get to see each other in person someday soon. So
I hope so too. It's been an honor. Thank you so much. And this has been a wonderful visit and a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Stacy, talk soon. See y'all. We'll see y'all next week on the Fresh Start podcast. Thank y'all for listening.